All right. So, this piece made the case that, once you have passed a certain age, your language structures have really started to reach maturity, and it becomes more difficult to learn a second language. And what really suffers in those cases would be accent, for one thing, because your brain is used to hearing the phonemes and expressing the phonemes that are part of your primary language, but also grammar. The rules of the language can be the difficult part. Sometimes people will say it's really easy to learn, Spanish and Italian or something like that, and they think it's because there are a lot of shared words, or what we call cognates. But honestly, the reason why those two are easier to learn, if you know one, it's easier to learn the second, is because they follow similar grammar. The rules are very similar. And so whenever you can make that kind of association, you actually do better on the second language. All right. Whoops. Oh, geez, I've gone crazy. Sorry. Yep, lost my mind. Okay, there we go. So let's talk a little bit more about bilingual language processing. So in that video that you just watched, some of the participants, at least one of the participants, would be what we called, when I was in grad school, balanced bilingual. Balanced bilingual is not really the popular term anymore, but I just think it's such a perfect term. So if it sounds offensive to you, please don't hear it as an offensive term. All it's saying is that you learned your second language prior to the age of 5, and so they probably you are balanced in your abilities in the two languages. Both of them are being processed in the language centers in the left hemisphere, and so you have equal grammatical skill, you have equal phonemic skill in both of the languages. Now, the thing is, if you learned your second language prior to the age of 5 and then maybe didn't use your primary language anymore, or, in some cases, in immigrant families all around the world, when they arrive in their new country, they don't really want to use their old language anymore. They want to fit in with the new, social group. And so it might be that they are resistant to using their primary language anymore. And so you may find that a balanced bilingual actually is productive in one of their two languages, but really can't pronounce or produce novel utterances in their original language anymore, which is a really interesting outcome of just not wanting to use it or not having the opportunity to use it. A late learner would be somebody who learned the second language sometime after the age of 5. And these are rough numbers. On average, people will have basically equal fluence, equal accents, equal grammar if they learn it both languages before the age of 5. But I've met many late learners who, you'd really be hard pressed to see any evidence that they are better in one of the languages than the other. These are rough age breakdowns. But what we see in people who learn their second language later is that you'll see more of their vocabulary stored away from the language centers on the left hemisphere. You'll see it sort of all over the cortex. Their grammar rules are stored more likely as memories rather than letting the Broca's area just impose the grammar rules on the fly. They literally have to remember. And so you can see in the actual brain evidence that the two languages are not equally well integrated. One of them is a memory and the other one is more typically a language. So I wrote on my last thing that it's analogous to more like a memory system rather than a language system. Now, what about animals? One of the things that historically psychologists have talked about with regard to language is that it's the one thing that absolutely separates us from the animals. Like, one way that you can tell that animals and humans are different is that humans can communicate with language. But animals can communicate with us using symbols that allow us to understand what's going on inside their head. Now, it takes a lot of training. This bird that you're seeing on the screen that's going to be in the video, it took them, I think they said 9 years of training with that bird to teach him the concepts that you're going to see him demonstrate in this video. After 9 years of training him, they loved him. You'll see how adorably he interacts with the lab members, the researcher and stuff. He's like, I'll miss you. He's just so adorable, and it just tears your heart. A few years ago, he actually died, and they were like so torn up in that lab because, Alex the gray parrot is like everything. They they had trained him so much, and and then to see insight into what he thought and how he felt and stuff like that was just amazing. And then they don't know what killed him. He was just dead in the bottom of the cage. So really sad into that story, but he's so cute. So he's molting in this video, so don't judge him. That's not why he died. He looks horrible. He's missing all of his long feathers, but he's just molting. Birds go through that every year. But you'll see that, if we are clever enough, we can teach animals who can't speak ways of communicating what they know and what's in their minds. And so Alex can actually utter words, which makes it a lot easier for us to understand him. The other animals in the video, they can't speak, but they can show us what they're thinking. And so if we're clever, we can figure out ways to get them to reveal their knowledge base. So go ahead and check out this video, and I'll see you on the other side.